So we are so excited to be here today to talk about the mid-season finale of Star Trek Discovery. It is called Into the Forest I Go, and Tom is here to talk about it with me.
Hi.
Yeah, I'm really excited. So what did you think of this episode and as a finale and also just as an episode?
As a piece of television, I was completely captivated. It was edge of your seat kind of stuff. That wasn't artificial. That wasn't, it's the fall finale, so something awesome's going to happen. No, the drama genuinely grabbed me from the first scene and held me tight. There was no getting away from it. It was just completely enthralling.
Yeah. I agree. I thought it was really strong. I took a lot of notes. I thought that it was very well written. I thought it was very well acted, and I thought it was just very compelling. I agree, and so I felt like it was a very satisfying mid-season finale without being too cliffhanger-y, there's some things we don't know, but then they gave us enough to not be annoying.
Right. Yeah, there's a good springboard into the rest of the season.
Yeah.
But so many things got tied up, and
yeah, exactly. So, all right. So we kind of get this introduction, I guess, of that the ship of the dead is coming, and it's got this cloaking. They have this cloaking technology, I guess, that the Klingons, which we found out about in the last episode, which is why they were in Pavo, and why they were trying to get this energy from that planet to help them to be able to break that cloaking technology from the Klingons. Anyway, so it's coming, and so they are ordered by Starfleet to abandon Pavo and to retreat.
Yeah.
And did you feel like this was something out of character for Starfleet to just abandon a whole planet?
Well, it's not out of character for Starfleet Command. It would be out of character for our heroes on the ship. So yeah, that's the typical thing, that you've got the bureaucracy is sort of an anvil upon which you strike the heroes and challenge them, right? And that's no different here. Yeah. Now, ostensibly, the ethics of Starfleet should be, no, you protect those creatures. But also, I think that in a way that kind of indicates the way that war can rob you of your soul, right? Because you end up doing things you wouldn't normally do, and or neglecting things you wouldn't normally neglect.
Yeah, that's a good point. It just made me think of in Wonder Woman, when there's that meeting of the generals, and Wonder Woman is like, how can you say this? How can you just rationalize all of these men? And and then the captains or generals, whatever they are, they're looking at it from this aggregate kind of a thing, and not the personal way that she is. So yeah, it's kind of a similar sort of the way that the war can turn humans or living things, in this case, into just numbers in a way. So it's interesting.
Yeah, I think there's a line in Wonder Woman. There's soldiers. Those soldiers will die. Thousands of them. Yeah. And someone says, "Well, they're soldiers. That's what they do."
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
And without any evil or mustache twisting, he's just like, "Well, that's the way it is."
Right. Right. Yeah. So they decide that they come up with the solution that they're going to be able to defend Pavo, but they need to create all of these jumps. Well, they're kind of two things. First, they need to put a sensor on the Klingon ship. They need to get down there. And when they are able to do that, then the way that they're able to do that is to to create all of these jumps. And so I got kind of distract the ship. And anyway, it was a little convoluted, but that's basically what they end up having to do. And they tell Stamets that they have to make 133 jumps in order.
I'll grant that it was involved, but I really liked that it had to be so complicated because it made for better storytelling. But also, then it wasn't just magic from the Pavans making it so they can see Klingon ships. Like, it wasn't just a wave a wand and now their cloak is no good.
Yeah, that's true. There definitely was a big sacrifice to be made, and they had to think outside the box. Like, this was, yeah, I agree that it required brainstorming and kind of creativity, and it wasn't just an obvious solution.
Yeah,
you're right. I agree. And so they kind of have these. That sort of starts these two sort of plots going on. You have Ash and Burnham that are going to the Klingon ship to put these sensors in, and then you have the other plot of Stamets and this making all of these jumps. And I thought that Anthony Rapp as Stamets was tremendous in this episode.
Oh yeah,
he was really good.
Yeah, I was. That's one of the reasons I was so on the edge of my seat, and I had heard that they were, in the buzz before this launched. Someone of the producers or writers made a point about, like, well, this is going to be like Game of Thrones in the sense that nobody is safe.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we're not above killing characters. Not saying we're going to, but like, when you watch the original series, Bones and Spock and Kirk are going to be fine, and that if there's a red shirt along, they're probably going to bite it. If it's
right,
and we don't know who they are, then they're probably not safe. And you can and that's, oh no, they died, and this guy we've never seen before.
Right.
Well, this is modern TV, so like it. Yeah. So yeah, I was on the edge of my seat.
Mm-hmm. I thought the scene was so great with Lorca and Stamets, and he says, "I wish I didn't have to ask you to make this sacrifice." And he says, "You choose to go somewhere where nobody has gone before." That to me was like Star Trek.
yeah. Star Trekking it up in this Star Trek show.
Yeah, that was huge.
Star Trekking about.
Yeah. The technology has always been a little confusing as far as the spore drive and everything like that, and these jumps and stuff, but that's the part that gets a little convoluted, but I didn't really care. It worked.
Yeah. No, it's fine.
And so anyway, so yeah, you have that with 133, because the jumps are taking a toll on Stamets to begin with, so to do 133 is really brutal.
Yeah, it's an appalling number. When you know that it hurts every time. That's this overwhelming experience every single time, and then he wakes up, and then he comes out every time addled, and the next one might just kill him. You don't know what's going to be the straw. Which one is going to be the straw that breaks the Stamets' back? Right. That it's terrifying. Yeah.
Yeah. And his partner is there having to watch it all is also adding tension.
Yeah, it adds a little pathos to it. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And so I also really loved the conversation between Burnham and Lorca. And basically, like, her argument to him is, I'm here on borrowed time. Like, I am the logical person to go on, to fulfill this mission. And I know the Klingon ship. I've been on it, and he's resistant. And she says, "There's no logic to your thinking. I'm here on borrowed time." I thought that was really a great scene between the two of them. Yeah,
and what I liked about that is that, like, she's right. There's every logical reason to send her, except and the only reason not to is that Lorca's kind of attached.
Mm-hmm.
And I really like how it's come together. Like, now it's clear to me, very clear and obvious almost, why he would want to keep her on the ship, even though she's a mutineer, etc.
Mm-hmm.
because he's a mutineer at heart. Like
I
think he's a guy who at heart will break any rule to do the right thing.
Mm-hmm. Well, and he even says that we've had to turn polite scientists into fierce warriors, and I think that's very true.
Yeah, and there was a bit of sadness in that speech. Like, I liked that, and I liked that Lorca didn't turn out to be a son of a bitch. But I'm glad that though that he was cast and performed in such a way that he's an unknown quantity. That we didn't feel like we were safe in the embrace of Captain Jean-Luc Picard. Like she's a very familiar Starfleet captain. Like she's the quintessential Pike through Archer Star Trek captain.
Right.
But Lorca is not. There's some things that are familiar about him, but I like that he was an unknown quantity. He wasn't presented to us as the hero we were supposed to root for, and he could do no wrong, the way Sisko was. Even though Sisko does do wrong, even though Sisko does go on to make some questionable decisions and do some pretty radical things, we're pulling for him. Not so with Lorca. We don't know what he's going to do, or whether we're going to even like him or not by the end of the show. And I like that we do, but I like that we question it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, he is a very he's a realist when it comes down to it, I think.
Yeah.
With his character.
I think that's how he sees himself anyway, yeah.
Yeah, and he just, I don't know, like, he's the kind of person that I think is able to kind of pull it all together for the crisis situation. But I think if he ever like took a holiday or something, he'd probably be very like have a lot of problems. You know what I mean? Like there's certain people that are like better in the crisis kind of situation.
Yep, absolutely. Like the general who shoots himself in peacetime, or like I think it was Meriwether Lewis from the Lewis and Clark expedition, who when he came home shot himself because he just had nothing to live for anymore, and there was no war to fight, no mountains to climb, and so given how mentally broken we know he is, per the professional opinion of his best friend. But he's also kind of a mess, and that's cool too.
Yeah, agreed. And speaking of his friend, so Burnham and Ash beam onto the ship, to the Klingon ship, and they immediately sense human presence. They find Cornwell, so we find out she is not dead, but she can't really move her legs, and she's been heavily injured. That we saw the Klingon female, L'Krell, I think is her name. L'Rell, sorry, L'Rell, and she is in prison, in the same prison as Cornwell, and so anyway, Ash has this extreme response to her presence. Yeah. It brings back all of this torture and PTSD and shock, and he becomes like completely incapacitated. What do you think about that?
That was cool. This is not the first time Star Trek has covered PTSD, but it's the first time it's been covered this dramatically. It's called "It's Only a Paper Moon." That's the episode. It's Only a Paper Moon. Highly recommended. So basically, he hides in the holodeck. But anyway, so the point being, they've coped with PTSD before, but in sort of a recovery setting, not in this crisis setting where Ash calming, where the soldier in question calming down is a life and death matter. So this was real cool. And I also liked that he was sitting next to a psychologist. And I don't know enough about psychology to know if what the techniques she was giving him were real or what. But I liked that in this episode, the science of psychology, soft science though it is, was taken seriously. More seriously than I think any other Star Trek show has treated the subject. They've had psychologists on the show before, who are characters who are psychologists from actually 1966. They're from time to time been psychologists. But that doesn't mean, and Counselor Troy is the biggest example from TNG, but they've never really they've never really gotten very serious about psychology as a science in the show, because usually it's set up as like, oh, do you need to talk? And it's just like, oh, I'm your counselor and I'll talk to you. Not this science that's a real thing that has real techniques and, for treating certain things. And this was serious as a heart attack psychology. And that was cool.
Yeah. Yeah. I think maybe if I was going to nitpick a little, I think it was a little just edging on gratuitous at times. I think it was I thought they could have toned it down and been a little less violent, but I don't know. I guess, they're trying to do the more mature thing and with this, so I get it. I think particularly when you combine it with, we'll talk about the sort of the rape element that gets introduced. It was just a little too much for me. I wish they toned it down a little bit. But
for the sake of letting my son watch it, I'm inclined to agree with you. But at the same time, we're seeing an intensity from Star Trek that we've never seen before, and I guess that and there's something to be said for doing new things with Star Trek and testing it a little bit. Seeing what it can do.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's true. That's true. So I think that it was some powerful scenes between Burnham and Ash, when she says they didn't break you then, they won't break you now. And I don't know, it was moving, and the chemistry between the two of them I've always liked, and the bond between them was just so strong, and I thought it really worked in those scenes. I thought all of the actors were really strong in that scene. They were up to the challenge, and so it was pretty tense because you're zooming back between the Stamets and at this point I think it was like only 70 or something like that
and 90 some odd, and I'm sure everyone with me just went, Jiminy crickets! Holy
right.
cow!
And the doctor,
leave the poor guy alone. Get him out of there.
Well, the doctor said, "Call it off." Yeah. And Lorca just said, "Do whatever you have to do to finish the jumps. Like, this is absolutely crucial." Klingon of this of the ship. So Burnham, she puts the sensor in. She ends up interacting with this captain, and she actually speaks to him in Klingon. And he has
the universal translator,
yeah. So he has the I don't know what they call it in Star Trek, but the pin of the he has Georgiou's pin.
Oh yeah, her badge, yeah.
Badge, and he actually is like even picking his teeth with it. It's pretty
reminding us of the fact that he ate her, freaking ate her, yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty gnarly. And so she tells him that I thought the Klingons were honorable, and she says, "I'm the one who killed Takumba. You were not here." And then they fight, and I thought that was really fun.
This was an aspect where I felt like they were borrowing a little from Star Wars in terms of like the grandiosity and the oh crap kind of feeling, because Star Wars is known for having those kind of big confrontations where the lightsabers come out, right, and it's on. Star Trek doesn't usually do that kind of thing where there's like dramatic weight behind the fight, and it's a duel,
Oh yeah, that's true.
But I'm not complaining. Absolutely not complaining. It was cool.
I just thought, I accept your challenge, human. That was really good.
That was pretty bad. Yeah,
it was good. And she gets knocked down pretty bad. She's certainly not like some invulnerable character.
The fight choreography was just, it was great.
Yeah, it was really good. And your death will seal my power as the Klingon leader. And
the patter and everything. Yeah, that's absolutely very Star Wars. But then again, the Klingons are pretty operatic people, so it absolutely works.
Yeah, it was really good. And so that's a pretty long sort of segment, I'm trying to remember, actually. I forgot to write down. Does she end up just knocking him out, or does she end up killing him? I can't remember.
She kills him.
She kills him.
Well,
okay.
no, she actually, no, it's kind of a draw. Like, she gets beamed out, and then he dies in the subsequent because they can suddenly see.
Right, and then the ship gets blown up. So yeah.
Yeah, okay. And again, I'm being reminded of Star Trek VI, where again they figure out a way to see the cloaked bird of prey, right? But Christopher Plummer's on the bench, but whether they know, and he sees this torpedo kind of spiraling towards him slowly, and he's like, "Is it gonna get us?"
Yeah,
and he goes, "To be or not to be," and then he blows up, right? Very dramatic. It was they did that again, but in a way that was really cool in its own right, and was totally, it worked. It was just beautiful.
Well, so they end up, beaming onto the ship, but before they're able to do that, as they're doing that, L'Rell sort of like grabs on to Ash, and she ends up beaming onto the ship. And at first I thought, because I thought, she's gonna like it, attack, or there's going to be some kind of thing, but they were just like, first I was sort of surprised because they're just like, there's a Klingon prisoner. And I thought, okay, that's sort of anticlimactic, but of course that's really not the ending. But, and so I really liked, there's a scene where, so Burnham has Georgiou's badge, as you call it, and Saru finally has kind of respect for what Burnham has accomplished and what she's done. That was a nice moment, I thought.
Yeah, indeed. It was a nice atonement, and it was a great moment. And I love that she got that back, and it's her remains, effectively. It's because there's no body to be had now. It's her remains. It's her now they can kind of bury her, both in terms of interring remains or whatever, or memorializing a person and then moving on. But they're actually burying her between themselves. Like Captain Georgiou is no longer going to be an issue between them.
Yeah.
And that was cool.
Yeah, it was. And so the Klingon ship is destroyed. They take it out, and and Cornwell is sent off, so you don't really hear from her for the rest of the episode. They're basically, like, the Starfleet then says, like, the war is not yet not yet won, but you've increased the likelihood of victory for Starfleet. And so and they're supposedly going to give Lorca this award of honor. And but then you get this scene between Ash and Burnham where she says, "When you saw that Klingon, who is she to you?" And we basically get to hear from him that she's the reason I had nightmares 227 days, but it took only one to realize I wasn't going to make it out alive until unless I wasn't going to make it out alive unless I made a choice. I survived. The Klingon was more than just my captor. She was my torturer. And so I don't know. It's interesting. So they bring out this whole element of basically sort of. I feel like I can't think of, again, I don't watch a ton of mature content, but the idea of sort of a male rape kind of storyline is pretty bold.
It is, and it's really interesting. I wasn't bothered by it, and that because in terms of like, for content or whatever, they weren't trying to turn us on. They were
right.
They're trying to convey how traumatic that would be, and how perverse it was. And we have a weird cultural thing around men getting sexually abused. We're really weird about it. And in a way that's like it's toxic. And this show is moving in the right direction. Like men getting sexually abused, it needs to be taken just as seriously as a woman getting sexually abused.
Sure.
How many times, do you hear, like on morning radio, you hear about, some woman getting put away for raping her 15-year-old student, and they're high-fiving and they're like, hey, this is a lottery win for that kid, lucky him, or whatever. Right. No, it's not a joke. It's not cute. It's not funny. You know, even when in cultural content that takes its male sexual abuse seriously, it's misunderstood and misinterpreted. It makes me so crazy. So the book The Reader, for instance, a really good and interesting novel. I recommend it, and a pretty good movie as well. That's about a young man who gets sexually abused, and it breaks him. Like, it really hurts him. He is damaged through his life because of what this grown woman did to him when he was a teenager.
Really weird. I mean, even the whole like cougar culture, I really hate that. I'm not a fan. I mean, even Adam Sandler made a whole comedy about the That's My Boy, about he supposedly had this kid with his teacher, and it's like this cool slap high five kind of thing, and it's a comedy, you know. It's just like bizarre, but this was done right, and I really thought it was moving. And again, I think a lot of it helps with this just really great chemistry between these two actors. I thought they were really good, and you just feel this empathy, and that that she has no way of really understanding what he's going through, but she's just listening, and she's loving, and she's
feel like this is Star Trek again, showing us what we can aspire to be. Because in the 23rd century, it ain't no, like, it's not that it ain't no thing, but just that, like, there's no weirdness around the fact that he's a man who is sexually abused. None. Yeah. Like, it's just taken for granted. He's abused. It's bad. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And there's no, hey, way to go, nudge, nudge, wink, wink. There's none of that bullshit. None of it.
Right. So the one thing I kind of almost wish it had sort of ended at that. So they have this sort of tag with him, like him going and seeing L'Rell in the prison, and they have this sort of weird interaction, I thought, and and there's this flashback that I didn't really care for, I must admit, this work, because we had already gotten the point. We knew, like, we'd had this. I don't feel like we needed to see this, rape kind of thing, and I just don't feel like it really added anything, and it kind of maybe was even a tiny bit silly as far as, like, I don't know, do we really need to see Klingon nudity in this? I don't know. I just didn't really like it.
No, disagree. I think we needed to get that, like, this was straight up rape. This was horrible. And yeah, because I think it's sexist to say that a rape scene, like in a show like Game of Thrones, is cool. And that's not sexist, but
I don't know, I just feel like the point had already been kind of made, and so I didn't feel like.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think all I'm saying is you should argue if you're just saying for no rape scenes in anything ever, okay, that's fine. I can get, I may agree or disagree, but at least you're consistent. But like, don't say that the ones where Rimwin are getting raped are cool, but this is over the top.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. I don't know. I just felt like, like I said, I just felt like the point had already been made. And so I don't know. I just didn't see the need to kind of have it again. But anyway, there are some people I read online that are thinking that, like, Ash is sort of brainwashed by L'Rell, and that he's sort of a double agent of hers. Do you feel that way?
It's possible. I definitely feel like she is a clear and present danger on that ship. And even if she is, in the brig, I don't care. She is scary and she's dangerous, and
they have to make one more jump in order to get back to Starfleet, and so he agrees to do one more time, and there's really nice scene between Stamets and the whole crew and everything, and there's a nice little, I kind of appreciated a little La Boheme little reference, which was because Anthony Rapp, he's at least most known for me as being in Rent,
Yeah,
that's one of the big songs in Rent, and it's all kind of based on La Boheme. I thought that was a nice little Easter egg. That was fun.
Yeah.
And anyway, so there was a nice thing there, and basically, like, they try to do the jump, but Stamets collapses. He gets these white eyes, and they end up, it's an incomplete navigation sequence, and they end up, they don't know where they're at.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. They have no idea.
Not the first time that's happened in Star Trek. That's kind of a trope, but my wife was predicting mirror universe, and I was waiting for some kind of a tell that they ended up in the mirror universe, but they didn't. They withheld that. For all we know, they're just in the Delta Quadrant or something.
Yeah. I was going to ask you about that. If you think they're in an alternative universe of some kind and through all these jumps.
Yeah, I think my inclination is that they are where no man has gone before, right? Where no Star Trek has gone before. So I don't think they're in the Delta Quadrant. I don't think they're going to encounter the Borg or the Kazon or the Talaxians. I don't think they're in the Gamma Quadrant. I don't think they're going to bump into the Founders of the Jem'Hadar or any of that stuff. No crossover stuff is going on here. I think it's just they're out there, who knows where, and they're just going to be their job is going to be to figure out where they are and try to get back.
Yeah. I mean, because they're saying, like, they didn't have any of this technology in the original series, and they're trying to, like, that it would kind of explain some of these continuity issues that have bothered a lot of fans if there's sort of this alternative universe. And so I don't know, so it's interesting kind of point.
I need to send you a Reddit thread that's hilarious. But it's called the United Federation of Hold My Beer. And the premise, it's these people talking, and they start realizing that, like, back and forth are talking about, like, the Federation is basically run by humans, because humans are the only ones who will do this crazy crap with their ships and with their engines, bending reality and going back in time and all this crazy crap. And it's really funny because we do things because. Not because we need to, but because it would freaking rule, like, like there's an episode of Next Gen where, like, this ship, the Pegasus, is an experimental ship and it's been trapped. Well, what had happened was that they wanted to not only create a Romulan cloaking device, but they also wanted to create a cloaking device that, like, would allow them to go inside a planet so they could phase out of shift their phase or something, so that they could actually be inside a planet and go through anything. And why? Because it would rule. Because it would be awesome.
Yeah.
And the one Vulcan in the room was like, why do we need to do that? Because it would rule.
It's kind of like, remind me of one of the Jerry Seinfeld's bits that he does, where he talks about what a male idea it was to have a car on the moon.
Yeah.
Like, there's no, you're on the moon. Isn't that far enough? Anyway, but
we freaking can. That's why.
Yeah. So yeah, I just feel like like I said, they gave enough things to be like, we have a lot of questions, but it wasn't in an obnoxious kind of way that someone like Stephen Moffat, who I'm not a fan of, like the kind of cliffhangers that he likes to do, these sort of twists and stuff, just not my favorite. Excuse me. And so I think they did a really good job. And so I don't know, let's just share some thoughts from you about this season as a whole and how you felt about it.
Yeah, I'm excited to kind of go back and watch them in order. No, I've seen most of them twice, just as a consequence of like, oh, I caught it, but my wife didn't, or whatever, and so I'll sit through it twice. But no, I'm looking back. Yeah, I'm satisfied. Like I'm really pleased with the writing and the way that they're acknowledging previous Trek, but enriching it. It's not just, hey, remember the original series? Hey, remember Next Gen or any of that? It's not just, hey, remember. It's no, we're doing Star Trek now. We're going to keep doing this, and we're going to build on it. We're going to make it richer and more interesting, and add to it. And they're succeeding. And I'm very pleased.
I'm very pleased too. I think that they could have easily half-baked this. They could have, this was just on their streaming service. They had a certain kind of crop of people who were going to watch regardless, and they could have, they could have placated kind of and just like made it good enough for them to, but I feel like they really tried to be bold. They had got great actors. I really love this whole cast. I think they're wonderful. I think that it just the production values have been cinematic on a cinematic level. I think there have been some great episodes, like the time warp episode was just so fun and so engaging. I think that they have, ever since I was blown away by the pilot. I thought it was really epic. I have a few little nitpicks here and there, but overall I was just super entertained. I thought it was really good. And yeah, I don't have the background to be bothered by continuity or some of the other things that might bother other people.
And you know what? Most don't.
Yeah.
And that's okay.
And so I feel like in some ways this was maybe made for someone like me, and I can only view it through the lens that I view it, and I thought it was really entertaining. And as far as my experience with the movies, and about half of the first season of the original series that I've seen, maybe 2/3 of I don't feel like it's so out of whack of what I've seen in the various films, and I feel like it's within the realm of possibility, I guess. And I don't know. I just feel like the writing has been strong. I feel like the acting has been really strong. The production values have been really strong, and overall, it's just been a very entertaining show. So I'm excited for January and to get the second half of the season. And to talk about it, continue talking about it.
I have to say, like, this is another thing that's unprecedented in Star Trek too. Well, except for maybe the original series, is this all killer, no filler record. Like,
yeah,
was there one where you went, oh no, let's just forget that ever happened? Even one?
No, there was one. I remember that we were like, well, this one's kind of a filler, but yeah, but it was never like. I don't know. Yeah, I don't think there was, because there was just 9 episodes.
Even the originals. Well, I don't. Yeah, even in the original series, in the first season, in every Star Trek series, there's been at least one where you're like, okay, let's just forget that ever happened. That was a nightmare. Like,
yeah,
where that is so problematic on so many levels, et cetera, et cetera. You know, in original series it was Miri, and in Next Gen it was Code of Honor. In DS9 it was Alan Moraine. I could name them.
Right.
Like, I can't name that episode in this series, in this season so far. Now, the season ain't over yet, but so far so good.
I agree. There's nothing that has been boring either, and I'm sorry, but some of those original series episodes are a little dry.
Yeah, and, to the modern palate, yeah.
Yeah. And so I just really enjoyed it, and I had a lot of fun talking about it with you. So thanks for joining me. I think it's been a lot of fun. And
it's been a good time. I can't wait till January.
Yeah. So where can people find you?
My regular Twitter feed of just politics and jokes and whatever is at Amano Roboto. My poetry feed at Happy Place Poems is samples of poems I've been writing inspired by Disneyland. So
awesome.
Check that out.
Cool. We'll have that all in the description section. And you can find me at Smiling LDS Girl on social media, and my review on my channel for Justice League will be posting tomorrow when the embargo lifts. So that will be a lot of fun. So look forward to that. And thanks again.
Thank you.